good's this?
Dude, check it out. Who do we got in the house tonight?
Hi.
We are rolling right now. This is episode 4 of How Good's This, and we are joined by the sensational, vivacious, intelligent.
You got to do 10.
That's going to be tough.
No, it's not.
I just don't know 10 good adjectives. It's not because you
Luscious.
kind, luscious.
Voluptuous. You're not voluptuous at all.
I got a butt.
You got a butt.
I got a
Voluptuous butt.
I got a butt.
We are joined by none other than Tara Elise Lawson,
Hi.
who happens to be my beautiful wife and the mother of my child.
Correct.
Wow.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
How you doing?
Hello.
Hello.
Great. We're great, man.
Hello.
This is. I feel like this is.
Why is Alan looking at me like that?
How you feeling today, baby?
I feel pretty good. So, yeah, I feel good. I had a glass of wine last night, and no matter how many glasses of wine I have, I always wake up and feel like I'm hungover.
I thought you were going to say you had a glass of wine before this.
No.
We have glasses of wine if you want a glass of wine now.
We
4
do.
minutes.
You got
Wow.
you got a
want a
baby
Chardonnay?
you got a baby gone.
No. Let's get through a little bit of this before I start
Let's
necking,
get cruising.
necking Chardonnay.
Taz and I did something really remarkable last night, Jules, that we have not done since the birth of our child. We went out on a date without our son.
Whoa.
Yeah, big deal.
Dudes.
Things got heavy, bro.
Hot and heavy or just heavy? Like you guys got pissed at each other?
No, hot and heavy. We might have made.
Did you guys make out?
We might have made a little kissy in the gas station on the way home.
Boys and girls, listen to that.
We didn't.
Cut.
You didn't.
No, but it was awesome. I had a great
That's
time.
great, man.
I had
What'd
a
you
really
guys
wonderful
do?
time.
What'd you
Yeah,
guys
it was
do?
awesome. We were on our way to a friend's venue, Lucky You. We wanted to check out their spot, but they were closed. So we went to our favourite restaurant in Mizuna, and we sat outside and we had some wine. Alan had a cocktail. We ate some foods.
Nice.
It was delicious.
And you haven't done that since having Rudy?
No, so Rudy's nearly 17 months old. We haven't had a night to ourselves since he was born. We've actually never been on a date, have we, babe, since he was born?
Since he was born, no, we've definitely been on a date, but no, not since he was born have we been. And you haven't had a night off from him, period.
No.
Since he was born.
No.
I have. I've had
Have I
plenty.
slept in voluntarily without being woken up by my son? No.
Wow.
Well, no, but you it's interesting having children because the one thing everybody says before you have a kid is you better catch up on sleep now. Right? That's like the little jab that they throw your way.
Yeah, exactly.
And you, regardless of the opportunity to sleep, you're not going to sleep because you wake up every 3 hours going, is my child alive? Is he okay? And specifically if you're a mother,
Right.
I probably could sleep through it.
You 100% have and do that.
Yeah, there's been a few times where Rudy's been like wailing and I've just been out cold.
Just throw the monitor on
Sleeping
you.
through it.
Well, I don't know if you guys just don't trust me, but I've been at your house for about a month now, and I'm happy.
Yeah, no,
to
it's a
give you-
it's a trust
I
thing.
figured.
It's
I
definitely
figured.
a trust thing.
Yeah.
100%.
No, I would trust you.
I don't
You
think I
seem-
trust myself. I mean, I think I would, but I don't.
Why would we have you do it now? That you
Well,
just
I
said
mean,
that?
I would. I've never done it.
no.
So like, I mean, I would probably be so scared to do anything wrong that I would just be like,
You're going to be a creep just lying
Like,
on the floor in his bedroom while he
yeah,
sleeps,
just-
just watching him breathe.
yeah, well, I wouldn't know really where to start. You'd have to give me like a list of things to do, but I'd follow it, and I think I'd be all right.
We
I
might
think-
just not ask you.
We'll do it because I want you guys to be able to go out and have more of these date nights. It's 17 months and you haven't done one and when did you do it before you were pregnant?
Often.
We would
When
do
you were
regular
pregnant?
date nights.
Yeah, when I was pregnant, we would, for sure.
Okay.
I
It's just
wanted
impossible
to eat
once
while
the
I
kid.
was pregnant.
Yeah,
Couldn't
yeah.
drink, but obviously I ate a shitload of food.
Well, you guys can ask me whenever you want if you can muster up the courage and trust. I'm happy to watch. I'm happy to watch little Tintin.
Well, we must be transparent that there wasn't a lot of babysitting that happened last night. We went out to eat after we put Rudy down.
Oh, that's
So
that's,
it was pretty
that's
much
risky.
it was pretty much just my dad and my sis watching the monitor. And
Oh,
he
they
did
were
wake
there.
up. He woke up and Kaylee said, we have this thing. I'm sure you've seen it since you've been in the house, but we'll explain to the listeners. Our monitor, you can talk through it. And oh man, what was it? How long has he been sleeping well, baby? Has it been 5 months?
No.
4 months.
Since he was like 15 months old. So maybe
a couple months.
2, 3.
The first 15 months of his adult life, he slept like an asshole.
Really?
Oh,
Yeah,
just
shocking.
every.
What does that
like,
mean?
Like
Just
I mean,
never?
he's a baby, so you know, he would wake up every few hours.
Mm-hmm.
It took a lot to coax him into bed, and to coax him to sleep. You know, you do a lot of like the normal shushing and comforting. And then it would always happen to me. I would get him 2 inches away. He'd be asleep. I'd get him 2 inches away from his mattress, and he somehow knew. He just had like radar for the mattress, and he would wake up. But we eventually figured out that if you just stayed in the room and you laid down next to the crib and you said, lay down with mommy or lay down with daddy, straight face down would fall
They
asleep.
seem to be the magic words. So anyone out there that's having trouble with their kids, just use those magic words.
There
It seems
was
to work.
there was one day when Alan and I were on daddy duty.
Mm-hmm.
Alan was, and I was just like, you know, participating because I was there by association, and he let me do the lay down with daddy, lay down with daddy, and it worked.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Did
good.
you
You do it
try-
over the monitor?
Yeah, over the monitor, just lay down with daddy.
That's what Kaylee did last night. She was trying to sound like dad. Lay down
Does it work
with
when he says lay down
daddy.
with mommy?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought it was
Yeah.
just to like lay down with the daddy thing. So you have to say lay down with daddy.
No. Lay down with
That's
mommy
awesome.
works too.
Um,
yeah.
So yeah, we had a really nice night last night. I had a
We
really
did. It was
wonderful
great.
time with
I
you
did
last
too,
night,
babe.
babe.
Yeah, it was awesome.
That's great.
I'm glad we did that.
Kind of diving into your background. You're obviously Australian.
Correctamundo.
Give us a little bit of your story. Where were you born? Why were you born? Who are your parents? Where do you come from? Are you Kiwi? Wink, wink.
I was born to Jennifer and Murray Lawson in Sydney, Australia. Dad was up
greatest.
there. What's
The greatest people
that? Who?
of all time. Your parents.
They are. They're the best.
They're the best.
They're the best. Born in Sydney. Dad was located up there for work. When I was about 2, we moved back to Melbourne. Grew up in Melbourne. Loved it. And then in my late teens, I mean, I shouldn't probably jump ahead that far, should I?
Whatever. We're going to get to you guys, as well, but whatever. Talk about it.
Yeah, grew up in Australia and had an awesome childhood. Have an older brother who's 3 and a bit years older than me, Jai. Just did the thing as a kid, suburbia and school and whatever.
Did you like growing up in Australia? Was Australia a cool place to grow?
It was amazing. We lived, we grew up and lived in a little place called Strathmore, which is a suburb maybe 15 minutes from the CBD, from downtown. So we grew up there. It was amazing. Loved it. We spent weekends and summers down the Great Ocean Road, which is where we got married.
Yeah.
Down the Great Ocean Road. So we would spend our summers in a place called Lawson. And then Mum and Dad eventually ended up buying a holiday home down there. So we would spend our summers and weekends down in Lawson, and then, during the school week, and for the rest of our time we were
And
in
what kind
Melbourne.
of girl were you when you were a teenager? Were you like a rough around the edges
shit.
type, or were you just kind of like a goody two shoes that just wanted to like?
No. I was never a goody
patty
two shoes.
cake.
I was so annoying. I just went through phases. I was in high school. I went to an all girls Catholic high school.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Did that
Uniforms
suck?
and everything. I mean, I don't know any different. It was fine.
You did that the whole time.
What do you mean?
Like you went to school.
I went to primary school, which is elementary, like from the age of 5 through 12, and then from 12 through 18, I went to an all-girls private high school.
Was that in Melbourne?
Yep, in Essendon, so the neighbouring, Moonee Ponds, the next suburb across.
Uniforms and everything?
Yeah, uniforms and everything. Socks
Wow.
had to be pulled to a certain height. You couldn't have your skirt sort of, technically above your knees.
Is there any correlation to like that experience with like who you've become as a person now? You think?
I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, I loved going to high school. I hated school. I loved art.
Yeah.
But I hated anything academic. Had a really great group of girlfriends, obviously, because I was surrounded by girls. Had a really core group of girls that, we went through high school together. I mean, it was tough. Year 7, when you go to high school, you're forming your friends. You're forming those cliques.
Mm-hmm.
Found that. Year 8 was a bit tough. I was, sort of growing up and going through a weird phase. I was a bit of a shit in year 8. You know, like mum tried to take me to Japan and I was just such a tomboy, and we were on this trip in Japan and mum was trying to like brush my hair or put lipstick on me or something, and I was just like, you know, I was into Marilyn Manson and wearing Doc Martens with like rainbow laces and shit. Yeah.
Your wife was into Marilyn Manson.
Dude, you were super emo, babe.
I was so emo in 1998.
Did you wear Jenko jeans?
Are they Tencel jeans?
I don't
Crisscross,
know.
crisscross
Like big
jeans?
ones, like the big pipey.
Crisscross, yeah. Yeah, we'd wear
But
those.
Crisscross wore them backwards.
I don't know. We'd wear that.
Did
Super
you wear
wide leg all the way down.
Yeah, disgusting.
Yeah,
dark eyeshadow and stuff?
Yeah, I was so gross.
God, I wish we had pictures to pull up right now of that.
Nope.
That'd be awesome.
We had some evidence. We had some evidence floating around the old WhatsApp family conversation that I should have saved. But
Yeah, you
I didn't see any of you in your emo days. Do you still have any connection with the girls you went to high school with?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're all still in touch somewhat. Jenna, who went to primary school with me, she started in grade 2. So I don't know how old we were. 8.
And still a
We've
friend.
been best friends, and we probably speak every day still.
Really?
Yeah.
That's the coolest thing about you Australians. I mean, like, I'm sure there's other people in even America that do this, but you talk to your parents and apparently your friend Jenna
Best friends, yeah.
every day.
Correct.
Is that customary for Australians? Like, do you see that amongst most people that you're out there with, or is that just because I don't do that at all, and I should do it more? Like, we should talk to our parents more, right?
Yeah, I wish I did.
I don't.
I'm not good at phone. I'm not good at the phone.
I don't know. I mean, I think the people that we're closely connected to definitely speak often. You know, I don't know. I think Jenna probably speaks to her family quite often, and I speak to Jake, another best friend of mine, probably every day, and my parents and my brother and sister-in-law and the kids every day. I don't know.
But it took some rocky years to get to that place where you're calling them every day, because you haven't been just calling them every day since you were 14.
No, you know, like I was living at home until I was 18, and I was so annoying to my brother, you know, being 3.5 years older than me and being just the annoying younger sister. Mm-hmm. So, you know, our home environment through my teen years, I was probably extremely annoying to everyone. Anyway, I went through school, finished high school, didn't do very well at school. I just didn't really pay attention.
Me neither.
I wanted to do all the art programs. So I would like spend all of my time in the art studios, and art back then, I don't know if it's any different now, you know, didn't really account for much in terms of your end of year point system. And then I took some time off. There's a thing, you know, we've talked about it, Al, where a lot of Australian kids who finish high school do a thing called a gap year. I don't know if it's typical in the UK as well, but after high school you take a year off, and most people often go travelling or just try and figure out what it is they want to do before they jump into university or a career or whatever it is they plan to do. So I did that. I took a year off after high school. I don't know what I did. I had a boyfriend at the time, so who knows, I probably did nothing. And then I started travelling when I was about 19 or 20. So moved out of home, moved overseas. My brother was already overseas. I think he had been for quite some time. And then I went overseas, spent some time there for a couple of months, came back, saved up, and then ended up moving over eventually somewhere around the age of 20, I think.
Did you just travel, or did you like land somewhere right away?
I went straight to London. That's where my brother was at the time, and my brother Jai was sort of ending his... near to ending his time overseas. So I think we all went to Portugal, and I don't know, he might have travelled on a little bit from there, but went to London, met him and some of his crazy friends on the first day I landed. I'll never forget it. Got thrown into these crazy parties and just like hung out with my brother, you know, like...
I wish I knew you back when you were a party animal.
I don't know if anyone
I
does.
Definitely wish.
Did you ever know her as a party animal?
Never. No, I think when we first started dating, there was a little bit party. It was like the balloon had like a little bit of air left in, like the party balloon had a little bit more air in it, but I just caught the last little beep, and my balloon because
did you have fun on that beep?
Yeah, there was a lot of fun in that beep. I mean, we've always had fun together without question. Taz enjoys herself. Always.
For sure.
But as far as like, you know, I went through a phase of, which maybe not every 20-year-old does, but I went through a phase of my life. Make sure you're eating that mic, baby. I went through a phase where, you know, I was just a trash can for whatever you got, dude. I'm going to throw it in. Just fa, 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 fa. And I think at the time that me and Taz met, she was starting to care a little bit more about her temple.
Yeah.
And wasn't just tossing anything in arbitrarily, whereas I was just ramping up that side of my life. And
but I mean, I went pretty hard. Like, I went hard. You know, like, finished school at the age of...
You.
I mean, I did. Ask Jenna, ask my folks.
I trust.
You know, like, when I finished school and then travelled, like, when I was 20, I went to London, it was hardcore, you know? Like, I just wanted to be involved in everything. I wasn't... You know, they talk about this thing called the Heathrow injection. You know, you get to London and you just get fat.
Is that what happens? I've never been.
Yeah, I mean, because I was just drinking booze and eating whatever I could that was cheap, because
Sure.
I was, you know, like, the second you step outside your door in London, it feels like you spend 20 quid just stepping outside your door.
Mm-hmm.
So being poor and young and just wanting to party, I partied a lot. I mean, it was...
do you look back on those days really fondly? I always kind of look... Earlier today, we were looking through some like old rap songs that me and Julian made with our buddies in this terrible house we lived in. And if you were to take me back and put me in that house with all the knowledge I have right now in my life and my life experience, I would be so miserable.
You just wouldn't be there. You just would walk in and walk out.
I'd walk in and walk out, but if you forced me to be there, I would be so upset. But if I hearken back to those memories, oh, there's so much joy that
But
I feel like...
hindsight does that, doesn't it? You know, like, you gain all this experience and then you get to a point in your life where you feel somewhat comfortable, and then you look back and you're like, oh, I wouldn't have done that, because you're a different person. So when I was living overseas and I was really enjoying that time as it was happening, I look back now and think I made some shitty decisions, or I could have done things better, you know, but I don't regret any of it at all. You know, I did treat my body like a bin, like a garbage can,
like a bin,
and
I
did.
We'll touch on it more eventually, but you're an incredible artist, and when did you start kind of like kind of going in that direction towards, like you said, you were doing it in grade school. You were kind of like,
I was always really artistic. Mm-hmm. So even as a young kid, I think even when I started to draw at a really young age, whether that was 3, 4 or 5, I was always pretty good, you know. Uh-huh. I wasn't drawing, I was doing some pretty good stuff even when I started to draw. I had an extreme interest in it and I was good at it, so I kept doing it.
Kind of like how when Alan sang for the first time, he was great, even though he doesn't want to admit it.
Exactly.
That didn't happen.
Yeah, it did.
No, it didn't.
What did you sound like when you sang for the first time?
I can't tell. Like, I can't do it.
It was
right
good.
Now. No,
I'm
wasn't
sure it was
good.
good. Just like Taz said. Taz is admitting that she was good right away.
Like, I mean, if
because
I was
she
comparing...
was
You guys
good.
are both inherently talented people.
No. Okay, so go back. Do you think that the artistic side of your... Because your father is very like tactile, mechanical,
mm-hmm.
an incredible engineer. Mm-hmm. Your mom is. I would say she's more the artistic. She's
very creative in different ways. They're both very artistic and creative. They're just in different ways.
And so, do you think it's interesting? Because I think you're a jeweler. Mm-hmm. You're a silversmith, a trained silversmith and jeweler. And what's interesting about that art form is it's funny because I think about your folks, and your dad is, like I said, very mechanical. You give him a problem and he can solve it is in any capacity. Your mom is very artistic, creative, and it's almost like you took both of those individuals' personalities and you brought them together with the craft of jewelry. Like, jewelry seems like the perfect marriage between both of those personalities, which is really interesting. Mm-hmm. Did your love for tools and welding and soldering, and did that start from anything involved with your dad?
I would think so, because as a kid, you know, during primary school and stuff, Julian, to get back to your question, I was drawing all the time and I was always trying to do something creative. And then as a young kid, Dad was always tinkering around in the garden or doing stuff around the house. So he had all of his tools and I would shadow him, you know, and then he'd go to whatever Ace Hardware is the equivalent in Australia, and he'd go to the hardware store and I'd follow him around and he'd include me in that stuff. And some of my fondest memories with Dad are just following him around whilst he built stuff. And, you know, we'd go in the car, and I love all those old school 80s, 90s, you know, singers and artists, because they just remind me of those trips I would take with Dad. So yeah, Alan, I think to get back to your point, I think being around Dad and sharing those experiences with him, I gained a knowledge and an experience and potentially, well, a love for tools and using my hands and doing that. And then Mum nurtured the side of how to harness that, or would show me things, or, you know, encourage different kinds of creativity, I think.
Your mom is half Japanese.
Yes.
Your father is about as Irish as a mofo can come. Your dad has clovers growing out of his eye sockets. He's so Irish.
Yeah.
We should let it be known also that the title of this podcast is a saying of his.
Correct.
Well, it's a derivative of Murray Lawson, but how good's this is a very Australian term.
Yeah, but Dad always uses it, you know, like when he's just stoked about something.
I don't want to believe anybody else says it besides him.
Oh, everybody says it over there, but nobody has the same disposition as Murray Lawson.
Yeah.
This podcast, and I have it tattooed on my knees too. When I first met Taz, I was traveling all the time, touring, you know, as much as you possibly could. I think the year before I met Taz, I looked at my calendar. Me and Laura were looking at my calendar I think we're in Dublin, maybe, Laura. And I was counting all the days in my calendar that I was home. And at that point, this was at the end of the year, I'd been home for 12 days.
In 2012?
In 2012, yeah.
2012, you'd been home for 12 days.
And then the year we met in 2013.
Yes, we did.
So when we first met, like, we were trying to figure out how to be in a relationship whilst, you know, I was, you know, already married to music and travel, and eventually convinced Taz to leave the glory land of Melbourne, Australia, and move to Chewelah, Washington.
Wait, is this coming back to the How Good's This point?
Yep, it's coming.
Okay,
it's coming.
Just keeping you on track, baby.
That's how we do it. Convinced Taz to move to Chewelah, Washington before I met your father. Your father and I had not met at this point, and I got an email.
Oh, shit.
I got an email from Murray Lawson.
In the signature.
Popped up on my email
thing. What was the subject?
I forget. I could probably find it somewhere.
Dear Alan.
Yeah, dear Alan.
Fucking hurt my daughter and you're dead meat.
That's what I was expecting.
Yeah, right.
I was expecting this like long, because at this point, right, I'd met your mom.
Yes.
We
went to Bali.
Went to Bali together.
You had Bali belly. Shut your pants the whole time.
Yeah, it was gnarly.
Yikes.
But had not had the pleasure of meeting your dad yet. And I was just kind of waiting, right? Because I had met your mom, and your mom is a very powerful individual.
She is.
And I was thinking, oh, well, Taz's father must be like a thunderbolt. The first line of this email opens up and says, I just want you to know how grateful I am that you're dating my daughter.
What a god.
I was like, who is? I'm like,
legend.
Is this for real? Read on.
Bad.
She seems so happy right now, and I just want to thank you for taking care of my daughter. I was like, this guy is amazing, right?
Can you read it as if like Murray's, can you do it in Dad's voice?
Mate, I want you to know that I'm so fucking elated that you're dating my daughter.
I think that's pretty good.
Not bad, huh?
Pretty good.
But that's where the saying "How good's this" comes from, is from Muzz's sunny side up perspective of the world. And sorry, this is a caveat for what I was actually attempting to try and talk about, which is your mother is half Japanese, half Irish.
Yep.
Your grandmother met your grandfather in Japan during World War II.
During the Korean War.
Korean War. Mm-hmm. Oh, I had it off. Okay, during the Korean War. This is crazy. My mom was born at the same U.S. naval base that Taz's grandparents met at.
And lived on.
But
just a few years later.
And they were there.
In Washington? Where? Where's your mom born? I didn't hear it. Backtrack.
Where have you been for the last 5
In
minutes?
Cincinnati? What? No, in Japan.
Your mom.
My mom was born. Do you remember the name of the base?
I don't.
So there's a naval base in Japan.
Okay.
My mom was born on. My grandfather and my
I had no
grandmother
idea.
were naval nurses and a naval doctor. My mom was born on this base in Japan. A few years prior to this, Taz's grandparents met on that same base.
Well, they didn't meet at the base. They lived there. They married and lived there, and they lived in the, I don't know, wedding quarters or whatever. They met through church, I think, and friends. But yes,
Bizarre.
but
Shout
they
out to God.
But they lived in the same place that Sandy was born just several years later. Crazy.
Another
yes.
random caveat.
That's
Okay, so let me
super weird.
continue
I didn't even know how
on
to
my
process that.
Let me continue on
Well,
my
I
path.
mean, you were clearly very confused at the
Blew up
beginning.
my brain.
Yeah.
What? They met in Washington? You're American?
Cleveland?
What?
So your mother is half Japanese. Your father is full-blooded Irish
English, yeah.
and English.
Just straight up convict. They came over on the boat.
Your style for jewelry and even your drawings, the artistic bent of the artistic slant, maybe is a better term, of your art always reminds me of Japanese artistry. Can you expand on that? Is that like, was your grandmother, did you have a connection to Japan like before you started really getting into art, or is that something you developed over time?
I think growing up with a Japanese grandmother, we were obviously influenced by the Japanese culture. So when my grandmother came to Australia, I mean, it wasn't cool for an Australian to have married a Japanese woman and live in the suburbs of Footscray, Melbourne. You know, like my grandmother wasn't accepted initially and later on not by my father's family, and you know, so it was hard for her. So I think her leaving Japan, so because she married my grandfather, she had forfeited her Japanese citizenship. So she didn't speak to any of her family. Like, they disowned her for a number of years. So I imagine she's since passed. She passed away last year, but I imagine for her, bringing the Japanese culture over to Australia with her would have been somewhat difficult. But we did grow up with some of it. So, you know, she would cook Japanese food. We would do, you know, like she was always cooking Japanese food and eating Japanese food, and she would always speak to some of her, you know, she'd speak to some of her friends, or she had a community of war brides that lived in Melbourne with her, so she'd speak to them in Japanese. And so I think for most of, you know, my family, we are influenced by the Japanese culture, and I think I'm just fascinated by it, and I think it's because it's in me, it's in our blood, you know, it's in Rudy's blood. It's and I love the Japanese aesthetic. I love the way of life. I love the food. I just love the culture. And I think it probably has influenced subtly. Like, I haven't seeked it out. I haven't seeked out a lot of Japanese art or, you know, culture to make it fit into my art form. I think it's just one of those things that's made its way into it. And I would describe the jewellery that I'm currently making as a very Wabi-Sabi style of work, which basically means, it basically translates to the perfectly imperfect, which is how my work feels right now. I don't have this high polished, highly nuanced, perfect piece of jewellery. I just make what I want, and it's a pretty organic, perfectly imperfect piece of jewellery. It's not intended to be precisely, you know,
Zales.
perfect. Correct. You know, like, and I get bored of that. I get bored of that. And no one's perfect, you know, and I just hate trying to make something be this perfect thing. And it's the same with my art, I think. When I draw, because I love to illustrate and draw, I don't have a lot of time for that as well as doing jewellery, but I think Alan, I think it's all influenced through that culture, I would imagine. I just align to that probably the most.
Seems like you choose your life partners based upon this old perfectly imperfect scenario too, huh?
I guess.
Yeah. you don't have much time for illustration anymore, and that's because you gave our family a wonderful son.
Yep.
17 months ago.
Yep.
Because I feel like your artwork and your jewelry has expanded and grown and blossomed since Rudy was born. And even though you have way less time to do it and way less focus, we both have less ability to focus on our craft. I sense that you have done so much better and are
Thanks.
maybe more focused on it.
I think obviously having a child changes you and your priorities change, and I think the way that you view the world, the way that you view yourself, your relationships, everything changes. And I think it would be naive for anyone to think otherwise, you know. I think I've always been a pretty comfortable and confident person with who I am. I'm not someone sure, during like some formative years, I might have been a little bit uncomfortable with who I was or where I was going, or tried to appease other people based off what I think I should have been. But I think having a child's just really given me the confidence to just become who I am and just embrace that. And I just give zero fucks basically. And I think that's shone through in my work. I was always trying to make things that I thought people might like, even though it made me uncomfortable. And now it's just, I'm really focusing on what I want to do. And if people like it, that's awesome. If they don't like it, then, do you need me to speak closer to the mic? If people don't like it, then that's fine. At least I know that I'm being authentic to who I am and I'm enjoying the process, because I'm a process person. I will have an idea and make it or try and execute it just based on enjoying that process, not because I'm requiring an end result or I have that in mind. So a lot of what I do is just process driven. So the pieces that I do now, I get in the studio 2 days a week. You look after Rudy, obviously, those 2 days that I'm in the studio, and I just make whatever I feel like. So some days I wake up and, you know, might have had a glass of wine the night before and I might be a little bit hungover from that, and I just make whatever I feel like that day.
Yeah,
or
that's awesome.
Something might have inspired me from the previous week, and so the stuff that I make ends up looking sometimes completely different, but it always has that, I feel it always has that Wabi-Sabi, perfectly imperfect aspect, element.
I think that value, that quality of yours is what I think I can speak for everybody, is what we all kind of admire about you and what we think is so, just the Wabi-Sabi, like the perfectly imperfect, like that you're able to kind of like, you're able to be at a point in your life where you're not so precious about what you're trying to do anymore. And maybe a kid has put that in, maybe like your relationship to Alan has created that for you. Whatever has aligned in your life to allow you to stop giving a shit about pleasing other people and kind of doing something for yourself with integrity and doing something that genuinely makes you happy. It's something that I'm trying to do in my life constantly, but am not always great at it. I'm sure it's something that most people are trying to do in their lives, and whether they're good at it or not, it's inspiring and admirable to be in the same house as you, to watch you do that on your 2 days, and to like see you create this stuff, and like also just be like a smiling mother at the same time, and to just like have a good attitude about everything, and also just to make dope shit. Like I see your stuff and it's like, dude, this is like, and that's why it's good. It's good because you have that attitude about it.
Thanks, dude.
Yeah, but I say all that as a compliment to you, but I also want to rewind a little bit and get you guys kind of to walk us through what happened, how this all came to be, you two, when you guys were, because you were on tour and you were just out in Australia, kind of being fizzling out your last piece of your balloon.
Yeah, like exactly. As Alan would say, I was, coming to the end of my fun life when I met you, wasn't I?
Well, there's 3 years between us, right? 3, or is it 2?
2.5, two
Two
and
and
3/4.
Yeah, there's 2.5 years between us. We met when Taz was
Me being older.
28 or 29.
I must have been about 29. So, I mean, I was at the end of my 20s when we met, babe,
I was 26 or 27, so I was just like...
You were still in puberty. You didn't hit peak maturity until you were like 31.
Yeah, well, I still haven't hit maturity or puberty yet, but I was in 5th gear when I met Taz.
Jeez.
And
what was I thinking?
Seriously.
What were you thinking?
I don't fucking know, Julian.
Well, let's unpack it.
Well,
what was going on? You saw him on stage. That's first time.
No, not
You
at
give him the
all.
story, baby.
Do you want me to give the story? So it was early-ish 2013. Alan, let me preface this. I lived in Sydney for a period of time. And during that time, I met a friend, Maddie Wu, who was in the music industry. Anyway, that aside for a sec. I was living in Melbourne. I had moved back from overseas. I was back at jewellery school, actually. So I was finishing my engineering in jewellery course. And I got a call or a text from Maddie to say, hey, I'm hanging out with this band that are here for the Blues Fest. We've got a couple of side shows. We're going to be in Melbourne this week. Could you potentially take us out, for dinner and help, entertain this band? Because he wasn't from Melbourne. I was like, yeah, I could do that, I guess.
Why did they call you to do that? What was like?
Just because I guess Maddie I was someone that he knew in Melbourne, and
you were just a socialite. You were just like a social.
Yeah,
person
I love Melbourne, and I've got a lot of friends in the hospitality industry, and I think he maybe just thought, well, if we get together with you, you might be able to take us to some good restaurants or hook us up or like just help me with this with the band. So I called one of my really good friends, Jane, and just sort of said, what are you doing on Wednesday? Can you drop your plans? And she was like, yep. So we met Maddie and Alan, and I believe Trevor was there. Another person was there too that's no longer with you, but we met...
Shall remain unnamed.
Yeah, and so I remember we met on the corner of on Swanson Street down in Melbourne. I think it was a Wednesday night, and we were going to a friend of mine's. She worked at this restaurant.
Okay, and hold on. Boom. First impression of Alan.
He had a lot of necklaces on.
Puka shells?
Oh,
there was like,
God. That'll be on my gravestone.
He had like so many necklaces. He had so many necklaces on, and there was like, he had this one, like, it was as big as the head of this microphone is. And if you're not watching this and you're only hearing it, I don't know, it was huge. And it was like a dissected, fossilized pine cone.
Yeah, dude, it was third eye blind cone.
Oh,
dude.
I was like, oh, this American needs some fashion sense. I just remember necklaces, to be honest.
Wow, that's so funny.
And I think you had some pretty skinny jeans on, and you had some really clunky boots with like a big tongue on them.
So needless to say, there was no like instant love attraction that you were feeling.
No.
Oh, come on. No, that's not fair.
Well, I didn't go into this situation expecting that. I hadn't, when I'd spoken to Maddie and asked who he was with, I hadn't heard of Alan.
Uh-huh.
Neither had any of Australia.
That's not true. You were there to tour. So we went to, there's this building there called Cookie, and inside there there's a Thai restaurant. Did you guys go there?
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
it's
amazing.
So
you
good.
ate at the Thai place? Yeah. You ate at Cookie?
I don't know. We went to Cookie.
Yeah.
Oh,
so good.
God, you guys remember that dinner?
So good.
God, that was good.
So one of my best friends, Louise, was working there, and she hooked us up. We just had a really awesome meal, and we just sat around chatting. And after that, we went to a whiskey bar. There was a really cool whiskey bar around the corner. There's like 400 whiskeys in this joint. And we got there. By this stage, we'd collected another friend of mine, Tammy, and we were just cruising around town. And we went to this whiskey bar, and we'd sort of all paired off at this stage. So I had like paired off with Alan, and we were chatting, and Jane had paired off with Trevor, and then my friend Tammy had paired off with someone else. And so it was kind of like we were all just sitting in these like twosomes, just having a chat. And Alan and I we hit it off. Alan was seeing someone at the time. Alan was in a serious, non-serious relationship. I don't know, but he was in a relationship. And I was seeing someone at the time too, just casually. And so initially it wasn't I mean, we just got along, didn't we, babe? We had some really great chats, and we were just getting along like a house on fire.
And were you like, sup?
Oh, for sure.
Even though you had a girlfriend?
Yeah, I mean, like I'm at least in this specific instance of that relationship that I was in, I was monogamous, and was abiding by the rules and the laws of monogamy. And so, yes, she was stunner babe time, but it was very much platonic at that point. Yes. And we were able to, I think just exist in like a casual curiosity of the human side of things. Although at the end of the evening, and she might not be forthright about this, but she asked me to kiss her.
Oh. I don't think so. I don't remember that.
You did.
It's like you said, "Can you kiss me?"
No, you said, "You going to kiss me or what?" And I was like, "I want to, but I can't."
That's pretty ballsy if I did. So yeah, I'll take that.
Nice.
Yep, I did say that, guys.
It was pretty rad.
100% said that.
Okay, so fast forward then.
Well, yeah, and then you and then that was say the Wednesday, and then on the Thursday night you were playing a gig at the Northcote Social Club. So I went along with Jane again to that, and then I think I pieced out. I pieced out right at the end of your set because I had to go and pick up old mate who I was seeing at the time.
And that was your first time hearing him?
Yeah.
So did that make you feel a different type of way about him?
I don't know. I really enjoyed the show. I can't tell you how I felt then. I think I was just shitty that I had to go and pick up Alex and I couldn't just like hang out. But anyway, like the show had just ended and I'd made eyes with Maddie and sort of said like I'm peacing out, and he was like, okay, well I'm sure Alan would want to say goodbye to you. Gave Alan a hug and then just bailed. And then you guys were off to Tokyo the next day, I think.
I can't remember at what point we flew into Melbourne. So our first sideshow of that trip was Melbourne. And then we would have had Sydney and the Blues Fest following that. So.
No, I don't think you did. I think you were leaving the country the following day. I'm pretty sure you were like piecing out of there and going to Tokyo. I think you did it the other way around.
Regardless, it's
life in the fast
kind of doesn't necessarily matter. But yeah, soon thereafter was gone, and then got home off that trip. This is kind of the tail end of that bonkers like 2012 year. This is sort of like the not the wrap up necessarily, but there was some space in between getting home from Japan and like the next thing that I had, which would
have been summer for you guys, which would have been your summer touring schedule because you did Bonnaroo and stuff that year.
Right. And that was coming up, but we, had a little bit of time off. I finally had like more than no money in my bank account, and got home. That relationship that I was in had like finally dissolved. It was one of those tumultuous relationships that was on again, off again, on again, off again. And it dissolved completely. And I thought, you know what? You've been to Australia. Mm-hmm. It's the best.
It's the best.
Like the food, the people. I don't know if it's something about the Commonwealth accent, but like just like Australians, when they come to our country, we're just like infatuated. I remember meeting Australians growing up and just being infatuated with Australians, thinking they were just so cool. I think we have that same party pass over in Australia, and I thought, man, I want to go back to Oz. So I immediately booked a ticket. I convinced.
No. Step back.
Yeah, dude.
No.
Might be. I've been told.
And I've got proof of this. I still have it.
Show it.
3 weeks after we met, I get an email from you.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Right after Tokyo, I got home.
You just said that you just like skipped over that and you were just going to like go back to Australia.
Give yourself a chance to be romantic for a second.
You sent me an email 3 weeks after, so your relationship had ended. Mine, ironically, had two within that 3 or 4 week period. I get an email from you, which is, hi, blah, 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 how are you, what's going on, chitty chat.
Did you read between the lines?
There was literally a PS at the end of the email which said, P.S. Are you still seeing the photographer?
Oh, God.
No way.
And straight up. Now tell me, do you really want to love?
I've got the email.
Dude, I want to see that email because I'm not a PS kind of guy.
You can give it to me and I'll put it right smack dab in
You're
this
not
video.
a PS kind of guy. You absolutely were a PS kind of guy.
No, I'll just put it right in the body of the
Love
work.
makes you act weird, man.
No.
So anyways, I bought a ticket.
Right over it.
I bought a ticket. I go, look, listen, I had so much fun in Melbourne. I want to go back. I want to hang out with that girl, Tara. Convinced my buddy Earl to come with me.
Good guy.
And I remember on the flight over, I looked at Earl and I said, listen, Plur, this girl's dope, but I absolutely do not want you to allow me to fall in love with her. So whatever you do.
This is 2 months. We met in March. He's back over by the first week of June. That's the time frame we're looking at. Yeah. And he had a week off. But Alan tells me that he just wanted to fly halfway across the world just to visit Australia.
I mean, in all honesty, I did. I really needed to get out of the country and to get away from...
Sure.
But also, like, cutie hot pants over in Australia was enticing...
So why would you have told Elliot, I don't want to fall in love. Don't let me fall in love with her?
Well, I think it was just like it was in passing. Essentially, it wasn't like fall in love. It was more so the last thing I need in my life right now is to be in love with somebody who lives halfway across the world because...
Stupid.
You know, it's just dumb.
Totally stupid, right?
It's so dumb. It's like the dumbest thing you can do. And we even, for many months, were like, to both of us, blatantly, this is so dumb. This is like so dumb, but I really like you a lot. Eventually that progressed into, that trip ended. And there was no real, we hooked
Fireworks.
up. We were like we were paired up definitely during that trip. But it wasn't like I left that situation and it was fireworks. It was more so kind of open-ended, yeah?
And you guys were both like single people at this point?
We were, yep. We both were. I mean, I was working. I had moved back from overseas when I was about 24, worked in a professional job for 2 years in my field, and then by the age of like 26, you know, for those 3 years prior to meeting Alan, I was kind of trying to build my career, and I did a lot of freelance work, and I was doing retail stuff, and I was doing jewelry stuff. So when I met Alan, I was at a point in my life where I was trying to build these relationships with my career. And the last thing that I wanted was to meet a dude and fall in love with a dude in America and have to leave all of that shit behind.
Right.
But there was definitely something undeniable between us, and we just kept in touch. And I realized that Alan was a young 26-year-old traveling musician. And I knew that was a fucking crazy thought to like even pursue that. But we kept in touch and we spoke regularly. Alan had a really busy summer that year, and he played, a bunch of festivals and was really busy. But I came over to the States in August, I believe it was, at the end of August, and stayed for about 5 or 6 weeks. Remember, with Jane and Ryan. Yeah,
I don't remember the amount of time we were over, but we did a reunion tour of sorts. Earl, Jane's partner Ryan, myself, and Taz.
Jane is the woman that I took to the dinner with Alan when we first met in Melbourne. Okay. So Jane had a relationship with Alan already. Yeah, quality folk. We hopped in the Sprinter van, the old ice cream sandwich, and just traveled all across America. We went to Yellowstone, we went to Vegas, we went to Yosemite, we went to there was a portion of the trip. I was so uncomfortable that whole trip.
Yeah, she wouldn't.
Traveling around in the Sprinter van, and I hate the heat, and it was just like standing in the mouth of a hairdryer in that thing. Right. Like August, traveling across the country in the Sprinter van.
And how far into this relationship were you guys? This is like the very beginning?
This is August. Like, I mean, we'd been talking. Okay. There was no exclusivity to our relationship.
Right.
But,
and so, like, I've expressed to you as well as on this podcast.
To me?
To you, like my insecurities in relationships. And I imagine, and although I've known Alan my whole life as far as being an adult, and I know he's an incredible dude, I would still feel so scared to be jumping into a relationship with somebody that was like like a touring musician that was just going out on the road all the time and being like that. Like, had you done this before with somebody else, or was this new for you?
I mean,
or
it
were
certainly
you just like,
wasn't an ideal situation for me.
But you were diving in head first, and you were like,
well,
whoa.
I mean, I'd been in some monogamous loving relationships in the past. I think I'd had maybe 3 prior to meeting Alan. And I mean, being 29, Alan being 26, I didn't know if I was really wanting to entertain the idea of doing this, but there was something there, and it wasn't something that I could ignore. I was very scared. I was apprehensive. At the end of that trip in August, it ended sometime in September, actually, by the time it was all said and done. And Alan and I were in LA, and we were in this Airbnb, and I was just like, I'm leaving tomorrow, and I need to know what the fuck this is. What are we doing?
Straight up.
Say?
Straight up, I remember it, and I was just like, I can't beat around the bush anymore. This is going to be a waste of my time.
Yeah, good for you.
I've got shit going on in Melbourne. I'm not going to waste my time with like a 27-year-old traveling musician.
And did you just squints in your pants?
Oh yeah, I was super squints. I was like, I knew this was coming. Yeah, at that point, I think I was just as hesitant as Taz was. I was very much so interested in the relationship and interested in Taz and kind of smitten by her, but absolutely did not think it was smart to be in any sort of committed relationship with somebody who lived literally as far away as you possibly could. But I turned to her and I said, look, I like you. I don't really have any ability to fortune tell and kind of see where this is going to go. But if you're down, I'm down.
Not what I was expecting. I was like, this is like, we're talking about a monogamous relationship. I live in Australia and you live in the States. And
Right.
Alan was like, yep. I was like, what the hell is going on? I was expecting to go home the following day and just be gutted because Alan was going to be like, nope.
Yeah, but how can you deny it when it's that, right? Like,
Well, no, Alan just didn't seem ready, quite
Yeah.
honestly. Alan didn't seem ready, but there was obviously something within him that thought he needed or wanted to do that. But
We've unpacked this as a couple before because I think there's something about your unconscious self that somehow, without you being aware of it, steers your life in places that unconsciously and subconsciously you need to go.
Yeah, it's just like intuition.
But if you were making conscious decisions, like the conscious decisions I was making at that point in my life were so far removed from like where Taz was going with her life. She was becoming a vegan. She was leaving like the party atmosphere and world. She was all, during that phase of our life, you were always the first one in bed at like 10:30.
you guys would give me so much shit for that too.
I remember giving
I just
it.
wanted to be.
Yeah, but we were just webbing up. We were getting. We were raging. Ganger.
I don't get that FOMO thing. So I was like, you know what? My sleep's going to be real good. I need to go to bed. You guys would give me so much shit about that, but I just didn't give a flying fuck at that point. I don't care. I had become the person I was wanting to be in my late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah. To me, it was intimidating. I was like,
oh, sorry.
Dude. No, I mean, it's just intimidating because I was like, she's like way better than all of us. Dude.
So, yeah, right? So, like, I remember,
Not
actively during that time, I definitely had patience for, I don't know if patience is the right term, but it was like, okay, as long as you're okay with me going this way and you going this way, and then us still managing to somehow meet in the middle at times, like, consciously, every decision I made was opposed to her lifestyle at that point. I was like raging. I was staying up late. I was just an idiot. I was like treating my temple like a trash bin. And there's something about my belief in the unconscious self that like somehow I needed that. Like somehow I knew subconsciously, unconsciously, somehow, somewhere that like that's actually what I needed towards the pursuit of joy. And the other route that I was taking was like a blast. Don't get me wrong. Like I had some good laughs,
right.
But I knew that there wasn't any like lifelong fulfillment in that pathway only.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, listen, we all deviate, right? Like every once in a while we have a few too many Starburst on Halloween, but like for the most part, I didn't, when we met, I remember when we met, it was so funny. I was on this kick, like I was on a Red Bull kick, like full on Red Bull kick. And I was still drinking like quarts of milk during the day, right?
I remember.
So we would go to the gas station the first time we were hanging out just to get like a snack, right? I'm popping like Doritos.
Hot Cheats.
Yeah, Hot Takis, a half gallon of whole milk, and like 3 Red Bulls. And that was my lunch.
Yeah.
It couldn't be further away from how I was eating or what I believed to be healthy or good for you. And I'm just like, this guy's like, what are you doing?
I mean, it all caught up to you guys, right? Because it wasn't all
the Red
just
Bull or the milk?
not neither, not the dietary
No,
stuff.
the Red
like
Bull and
just
the milk
everything,
definitely caught up to me that evening.
Well, yeah, but like everything that was kind of conflicting between you guys, like before you had decided to really step in and really like commit your full lives to each other, get married and do everything that you have done. You went through some pretty like you were like, I don't think this is going to be the thing.
Well, the thing, I don't know how much time we've got, but when we made that decision at the end of September to do this, I went back to Australia and worked my ass off. I think I had 3 jobs at the time just to save enough money to try and get back the following year. I think I came back in February of that next year maybe, or we might have met in Bali actually.
I think we met in Bali in November.
Oh yeah, actually we did. We met in Bali and then I came back in Feb. But I left my life.
Dude.
So when it was time to come over, I had left my life, left my family, who I'm obviously extremely close to, and moved to Chewelah, Washington with like nothing, no one. Alan was on tour all the time. So I was living in his parents' cabin by myself with no internet, no TV, no friends.
Ghosts.
Ghosts. Another story for another time. On a somewhat abandoned lake.
Yeah.
Going from the busiest city, one of the busiest cities in Australia.
And I don't think the people that are listening understand the gravity of the decision that you had to make, because I didn't either as a friend of yours at that time until I went to Australia and realized what you left behind in all of your friends, in your family, in the environment that is there for you. To have removed yourself from that situation and to plop down in Chewelah, Washington.
Well, it's not even technically Chewelah, Washington. It's Waits Lake Valley,
Washington. Mm-hmm.
So Chewelah is obviously you've been to Chewelah, Jules, but to give everybody a context of what Chewelah is a 1-stoplight town in eastern Washington state, just north of Spokane, about 45 minutes. I was raised there. Great little town, cool community. Still to this day, like some of my favorite people in the world have come out of Chewelah. Mm-hmm. We lived a half an hour from there on this lake that was the closest to anything was this like 10-minute drive to what is called Valley. They had a bar and they had a post office.
Mm-hmm. And a general store. And so when Taz, and I want to get your perspective on how it actually felt when you when you got there, because like during the process of this portion of our relationship, I definitely feel like Taz was the motivator of it. Like Taz sacrificed everything. Taz was like really the one. If you hadn't asked me like, hey, what is this? It would have been a while before I was like, hey, I think we should like be together. Yeah. Because I was just so on this path of the whole world revolves around me. Like I had just people had just started giving any shits about my art, and that was a new world. I, for the first time in my life, had money in my bank account, and so the real kerosene that was thrown on the fire of this relationship, I think, came from you, babe. Yeah, maybe, yeah. And it's not to say that, look at me, I left all this stuff behind. I think I was ready to do that, and I believed in the relationship, and I didn't want to see it fail because of everything I'd left behind, and I didn't want to not give it a red hot go. And I was put in some pretty uncomfortable situations, but it's not, I've been in uncomfortable situations before. I've, like said earlier, I've traveled the world and done some pretty stupid shit.
Come on, going to Waits Lake.
Yeah, but I mean, it was the situation. Yeah. And I was in a new relationship, didn't want to put a foot or a hair out of place or seem like I was ungrateful or that I was, high maintenance, because if I had have done that, then Alan might have gone, you know what? I just don't think it's going to work out.
Yeah.
And it would have been a waste of my fucking time.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to complain. I didn't want to put a foot out. I mean, I wasn't a pushover by any means, but I just was trying to be patient and understanding of the situation. And so it just, again, hindsight, it's crazy to look back and think what that was and how that ended up. But, we went through some pretty rocky times. It wasn't easy. I feel like, I was going through puberty with Alan. He eventually upgraded from Red Bull, and
I drink Runa now, baby. Yeah. Shout out if you want to sponsor the podcast. You know what I'm saying? Blah, 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 Runa.
But Alan, it was growing pains. And we sort of grew through all of that together. And once we hit our stride, which probably wasn't for a couple of years into our relationship. It was probably, around the 3-year mark maybe that we really... Huh?
Oh, yeah. I would say it was like 2018.
Maybe, yeah.
Or 2017.
That's what I mean, 2017-ish, 2018. I mean, you asked me to marry you in 2017, so we were definitely...
Yeah, we were good for about a year prior to that.
We were in a good place then.
Yeah.
Look, Jules, it was tough, dude. It was tough. And it's still tough to be away from my family. I think that's the shittiest thing about this situation is that I just can't be with them. But, I just keep reminding myself that no one can ever be in two places at once. And so I need to just accept and really love where we are at now as a family. And I do, and I love it. And it's just taken time.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly a testament to your love for him. And I didn't know, again, like how much you had sacrificed until I went to Australia and saw it with my own eyes. And then it was, I had already loved you at that point, but I was like, whoa, bro.
Was there any sort of, up to this point, you had traveled a lot. I don't know how often, I think when you came to America for that cross-country trip, that was probably the first time you'd been to America as an adult, right?
I had zero desire to come to America. I had traveled the world and I had zero desire to come to America. Really? Ever.
But
there was no sort of like curiosity about America? Wow.
Nope. I've got my EU passport with my grandfather being Irish, so I was overseas for 4 years, living in Greece, living in Turkey, lived in London, traveled through Ireland, did Southeast Asia, did all the things, and just didn't really feel like I didn't want to be in another Western country that was. I just didn't. I don't know. I didn't want to live or didn't have the desire to just go to another Western country and just be absorbed by that, culture. Nothing about America actually interested me.
Interested
me. Really?
Wow.
So no, I had been here when I was a kid. Went to Disneyland with the folks and my brother, but to answer your question, had no desire to be here as an adult.
Dang. I was hoping that some of the
It was
blame.
you, man. It was you. You did it. You were the thing to come forward. It wasn't America.
I'm sure I was the catalyst, but I always kind of had in my mind like America's pretty tight. Maybe there's a little bit of like, I wonder what America would be like.
Well, yeah, now that I'm here and I have a better grasp of how big America is and we've got great friends here and what it's all about, and I'm slowly navigating that since, living here for the last 5 years. I have grown a love for it, but what I'm saying is initially there was never any desire to come here prior to meeting you. Not at that stage in my life, maybe later. But
when you made the decision to come and live in the States, was there any of that, or was it strictly just to give our relationship a hot fire go?
To give our relationship a hot fire
go.
Yeah,
wow.
And it's been a shit show. Like, you know how hard it's been for us?
Yeah,
the journey that we've had to take just in terms of visas and work visas and now green cards and it's just, honestly don't wish that process on anyone.
But it's built a lot of character in the relationship, and it's strengthened you guys in an incredible way, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, I would hope so.
I look up to you both in your relationship and think it's super strong, and I live with you guys right now, and so I see the intricacies, the subtleties, the little nuances of your guys' relationship, and it's amazing. It's really cool because, like, yes, it's a shit show, but it's also like you guys have the capability to understand that that's what it is, and you're fine with that, and you can bring it back to center and be like the best, you're each other's best friends, and rock at the end of that 10-minute whatever it is that's bugging you. I don't have that. I'm not there yet in my life, and I'm relying on you guys to help me get there with myself.
Don't rely
on
us.
Look, like, I'm not sitting here and being like, you guys have the perfect relationship and I'm so proud of you guys and this is so great. Like,
Wabi-Sabi,
it's crazy.
baby. It's Wabi-Sabi.
And that's so, it's so cool. And like, I know why you came for Alan. I get it. I'm his best friend. I've been next to him my whole life, admiring him, kind of like, you know, following him and being like such a champion for him. I get it. I get why you would have done that, but like, I didn't know what you were leaving behind, and it was amazing for me to be like, dude, holy shit, Alan, like, yeah, dude, you got, like, well, I didn't even you got a champion, man, in this girl, and it's so.
It took me a while
cool.
to fully comprehend. I think it was Paulie who like sat me down at one point. I don't know when it was, because I think also in that stage of my life, like my 20, dude, pretty much when people started paying attention to my music, up until like my deal with Capitol completely exploding in my face, I thought I was the shit.
Right.
And it wasn't until I realized that I am not any better than anybody else. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought for a second there, but excuse me. That period of my life, it was probably 24 to 30. I was so amped on myself that I was also just kind of an autopilot a little bit, right? Because like you live on the road, it's 100 miles an hour. Everybody, like, you're in charge essentially. And so this universe that you're traveling in, especially if it's like your thing, and, you know, if your name's on the marquee, granted, and Steve could expand on this. I don't believe that I treat the people that I tour with like I'm in charge of them, but there's still this, there's this subtle knowledge that happens when you're the boss, right? Like, you just know that, I don't know what it is. It's hard to explain without coming off incredibly conceited, but at that stage in my life, I was learning that. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until like a few years into Taz, or maybe a year, I'm not sure how long it was for Taz being in the States, that one of my best friends, Paul, was like, dude, do you realize what this girl has done for you?
Yeah.
And it hit me. And you know what I think it was? There was a point in our relationship where Taz was like, like, the only thing that kept Taz in America was that it would have been so hard for her to get back to Australia. Like, that, in so many instances, like, the fact that Taz just couldn't just be like if we were living in Seattle together, right, I would imagine we would have broke up at certain points in our relationship, because it would have just been so easy to fade back into the city, disappear from, she go back to her friend group, I go back to my friend group, and like a normal dissolve of a relationship.
So much in the circumstances. The chips were stacked against you. You couldn't go back. You couldn't use
me.
Yeah, I mean, just the relationship. You were just sacrificed. You were there. You had to do what you had to do.
Yeah, it was
kind of.
Well, there was moments where. Yeah, of course. It just would have been hard. It would have been more difficult for Taz to get in a car, drive the hour and a half to the airport, get a flight from Spokane to Seattle to LA back to Melbourne. Like, that whole process would have been harder than us just like sitting down, strapping in, and figuring out our bullshit. And thank God that we had that barrier, because I think it saved our relationships a lot of times.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty rocky for a certain amount of time there, and Alan's right. If it was easy for me to just run back to my family or my old way of life, then we probably would have been donezo. But the fact that me leaving the relationship or going back home, that was final. Like, as soon as I got to the airport and jumped on a plane, I wasn't coming back and going through that shit again. Like, so we had to be very particular about the decisions we made, and if we were 100% certain. There was definitely a time where I felt like I was 1 foot in and 1 foot out, and I had to really ask myself, you know, if I make the decision to end this, like, what could I be giving up? I'm not going to have another chance at it. So it definitely strengthened our relationship, and it made us, it was some hard truths we had to face. And we obviously made it through all that.
Yeah, we definitely found our way through it.
You did. You brought a baby into the world. You got married.
We did.
You guys bought a house.
We did.
You moved to Spokane.
Sure did.
You invited your best friend JP Grimshins into your house to live with you during a pandemic.
Let me tell you, the hardest thing, this whole pandemic, and I mean, that's one of the shittiest things, is that I can't see my family. It rarely goes 6 months that I don't see my family, and we're currently entering the 8th or 9th month that I haven't seen them. So hopefully we can go back to Australia soon and see them. But
yeah, our dream would be to split time, to kind of have an amount of the year that we could spend in Melbourne, in kind of the close circumference to Taz's folks and her brother, because we love it over there. But at this point, it's obviously with the pandemic, it's not
even
possible. But you know, I haven't landed on that ability yet to, you know, make enough money, or I guess, I mean, at this point it is a money barrier, to kind of split that time. But eventually we're hoping that would take place. Be sick for little Rudy to have a livelihood and a lifestyle and an understanding of both places that his parents came from.
He'll get that chance, I think.
Yeah, totally. Well, it's also, you know, you talk to your family every day, so and that's amazing. So yes, you're missing out on the physical aspect of them being in your presence, but you're still catching up and knowing that they're well and everybody's fine over there, which is amazing. And I hope and assume that we'll get back to a place where that's possible for you guys. But you have your husband every day now because he's not touring. And has that been cool?
Has that been cool?
What's that been like?
Yeah, dude, this is a can of worms.
Shit. Look, our relationship was built on Alan never being around, quite honestly. And I'm a very independent person, so I'm okay with being on my own. I'm okay with doing my things to get me by. I, you know, never needed a man to, you know, feel like I was achieving things or to earn money or whatnot. And so it worked. When we first met, it sort of was the perfect symbiosis for me, where I would get to spend time with someone that I was falling in love with and now love, and then he would go, and then it'd give me enough time to miss him, and then he'd come back, and then it would be exciting. So this to and fro was actually really working for our relationship, and it was that way up until March of this year. And then when Alan came home, he was just home. Like, he didn't go anywhere, you know, like he couldn't leave. I was just going crazy, because I was obviously in a rhythm with Rudy. I'd spent every single waking moment with Rudy up until that point. He was a year old. And then introducing, even though he's my husband and Rudy's dad, introducing someone back into what felt like our space. You know, like, that's not how I do it. Or no, I do this first. Or that's what Rudy likes. It was just an adjustment. And it took quite a while to get used to having Alan home, because we've never had him home longer than a month, 3 weeks at a time. So it sucked for a bit. Yeah.
But like the first
for both
2
of you,
or 3
probably,
months,
right? Like, it was adjustments for both of you guys, for sure.
But let me say that whenever Alan came off a tour, there was always that weird, like, week or two period where we were trying to find our rhythm again. And then after that, we're like, okay, sweet, okay, we're getting it. And it was like that obviously just amplified because we were in a lockdown and we couldn't socialize and we couldn't do anything. But it got better, and now it's amazing because I'm so grateful. Alan would never have had this time with Rudy. He would never have been able to develop the relationship that he now has with Rudy, which is incredible. You know, Alan might have only just been coming home now, and what Rudy's like 17 months. So
I also feel a much deeper connection with you, though.
100%.
I think at least in the last month, it's felt, there's a connection with you that I haven't felt ever before. And I think, you know, there's also, it's the pandemic, it's learning to live with somebody and coexist, you know, coming back to like how I normally exist on the road, right? I'm in a RV with like 12 people, and quote unquote, I mean, we all know that Bear's in charge, but like quote unquote, I'm in charge, right? I'm not really in charge, but like if I wanted to, like whatever I wanted to do, I could at least push for it. That's not the, you know, in a monogamous relationship, in a cohabitation partnership, that's not the situation.
I'm a hard ass man.
And so learning that dynamic for me personally has been tricky, but man, in the last month I feel so much closer, and like I'm thinking about when this thing straightens out. I'm like, that's gonna be real hard to get me back on the road, dude, because
maybe
like,
you're not gonna have to.
I'm gonna find this rhythm with my family and my wife, and
well, hopefully
I think too, you know, my immediate family has been going through quite a bit as of recent, and Taz has been like my rock and like an absolute legend during that whole process. And up to this point, I haven't really experienced any tragedy. You know, I haven't been through anything that is like really grounded me to the fragility of life,
trauma and stuff.
Yeah, and my that's kind of happened in the last couple months, and I think that has also opened up some perceptions in me that have just, I don't know, I feel like I've evolved quite a bit in just my understanding of our relationship, my understanding of the world and the universe, and the importance of my friends and my family and my child. And thank God. I mean, thank God for the pandy, at least for that, you know.
I think there's a lot of people in that same headspace, man.
Well, I mean, it's tragic because, right, there's some real suffering that's happening through this, right? But I've got a few things to be thankful for via this situation. And
look, my jewelry business wouldn't be where it is without this pandemic. Like, I mean, up until March, I was designing stuff and making prototypes and then sending stuff to a team of silversmiths that I've been working with for 12 years to make the bulk of my product. And now it's like, well, if this happens again and production line slows or mail's not going out or countries are shut down, how am I ever going to sustain this business? So I took it upon myself then to just hand make everything. And that means that that meant that my jewelry took a different turn, and it feels great. And so I'm super thankful for that, because I don't think the Ishi brand would be what it is right now. And it wouldn't be anything really, I don't think.
Totally.
It would definitely be something, but as a fan of your work, I don't think your work's ever been better. As like a legitimate, like I really dig what you do.
Thanks, babe.
I don't think it's ever been as good as it is right now, and I think that's the source of that is you having the minerals to do it yourself. You know, I think one thing that this pandemic, I don't mean to make light of the pandemic. I just call it a pandy.
I just think of Panda Express every time you say that.
Pandy?
Orange chicks.
The thing with this pandemic that I've, that's been a real wake up call for me is self-sufficiency, and how much I relied on so many different mechanisms in order for me to like feed my son. Yeah. And I think I've reworked that, and I've seen you really kind of step back and think about that and really put time into taking your own product photos and finding the gold manufacturers and building everything in our basement.
I just don't. I love working in a team. I just don't like relying on other people, and I don't like being dictated or governed by someone else's time frame, you know? So I get really impatient if something is not ready when I need it to be because I've got the momentum, but something else is slowing me down. And I hate that feeling, and I think that's what's made me feel pretty stifled and stuck up until this point. Now that I literally have full control over start to finish, like end product, I feel a lot more encouraged and confident in the product, the business, and what I'm actually able to do.
Yeah. Well, being somebody who has spent the last month with you guys and has an objective look inside both of your relationships, I can say that I genuinely admire and am inspired by both of you guys. And
Thanks,
I would be friends with both of you guys separately of each other. I think you guys are incredible human beings. I'm not surprised that you guys are in this amazing relationship with one another. I think there's like no surprise in that it worked out, because even though there are a bunch of surprises that did make it work out, you guys are such a strong team that makes somebody like me very challenged in wanting to figure out how to get to that place for myself. And I want the people that listen to this to just like know that nothing here is easy. Like people that follow Alan that like love him so much, it's like, oh my God, he's so great, everything's perfect. It's not. Everybody that follows your work, everything's great. It's like everybody struggles, everybody goes through shit, and you guys do as well. But you come out on the opposite end with grace and smiles on your faces. And again, being somebody who's been living with you guys for the last month, I'm just so overjoyed to be able to have this experience with you guys and to kind of be here in this period, to be pivoting and to be doing something really special with you two and Rudy, and to kind of just be like seeing it with my own eyes, because it's really, really special. And I'll take it to heart for the rest of my life. It's going to be a really, I think, cool period moving forward from here for
thanks,
all of us.
We've I appreciate you saying that, and we've loved having you around, and we don't want you ever to leave. So
we love Uncle Dean.
Uncle Dean, yeah, if you could stay and never go back to New York.
Yeah, well, you know, who knows what's going to happen.
We'd love that.
Yeah, well.
So listen to the podcast.
Yeah, tell them what your brand is, what your websites and all that stuff.
So the jewelry label is called Ishi, I-S-H-I, which translates to stone in Japanese.
Ooh.
So Ishi Studio, at Ishi Studio, and ishistudio.com.
It's so cool, the stuff that you make.
Thanks, bud.
People go check it out. I adore you guys both so much.
Love you, man.
I love you guys with all my heart.
Hey, guys.
Love you, babe. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Love you too.
Hey.
Hopefully it wasn't shit. Hey, guess what?
What?
How good's this?
How
good's this?
I feel like giving you guys a hug and crying now.
It's a wonderful way to wrap up a podcast.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here, babe. Thanks for
Love
being.
you guys. Thanks for listening to my BS.
Yep, it was
Fuck yeah,
great.
dude.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Jules, for the kind words.
Love
Thanks.
you guys.
Okay,
Enjoy
love ya.
yourself, America, and outward of America.
Love you, everybody.
Should have left it at how good's this.
Yeah, we will.
I'll cut it out.
Oh, boo-boo, did you just make it to the end of the video? Yes, you did. Do you want to see more videos just like this one? Do you?
Well, then head over to patreon.com/Live at the Lodge, where you can support the How Good's This podcast, as well as the entire Live at the Lodge family.
Yep, yeah, you're going to get exclusive merch, personalized shout-out videos. Me and Jules, we're going to show up at your house and baptize your nephew, huh? Check it out, patreon.com/Live at the Lodge.